The gavel hit the wooden block so hard the whole courtroom jumped. "Mr. Jacob Benjamin," the elderly judge said, her voice cold and clear. "You will either marry her as you promised, or you will pay 200 million naira for failing to keep your word." People gasped, cameras flashed. A teenage girl in a simple blue dress burst into tears and hugged her mother. The mother's hands shook, but her eyes were brave. Jacob's face went pale. He opened his mouth to speak, and everything froze. Hours earlier, Lagos had been loud and golden. The morning sun bounced off car windows and glass towers. Yellow buses yelled for passengers. Street sellers held up bottled water and plantain chips. A black Bentley rolled down the highway, smooth and proud. Inside, Jacob Benjamin, billionaire CEO, neat haircut, perfect navy suit, looked at the time on his watch. He was going for a high executive meeting with big partners. People had flown into the city just to see him. He liked power, and today he needed everything to go right. Then the car jerked, once, twice. It coughed like a sick man and slowed to a stop by the shoulder of the road. Jacob blinked. "No, not now," he muttered. He tried the start button again. Nothing. He called his driver. Busy. He called the company mechanic. "Boss, hold on, I am coming," the man said, but traffic was tight and slow like a snail. Jacob stepped out into the bright Lagos morning and loosened his tie. Heat pressed on his face. Cars swooshed by. A bus honked at him for standing too close. He lifted the hood. He stared at shiny parts he didn't understand. He tried wiggling a cable. Still nothing. He felt a sting of anger on his neck. Why today? Why this car? Why him? "Mom, is that a Bentley?" a young voice asked nearby. Jacob looked up. A slim woman walked past, holding an old black nylon bag to her chest. The bag looked tired and stretched, as if it had carried too many heavy days. A girl of about 14 walked beside her, holding a small loaf of bread like it was treasure. The woman's dress was brown and faded. Her black hair was messy from the wind, but her eyes were sharp and kind, like someone who knew how to fix broken things. "Good morning," she said softly as they drew near. Jacob nodded, impatient. "Morning." The teenager's eyes shone. "Mum, that car is fine," she whispered. "Keep walking, Jessica," the woman said, but her gaze stayed on the open bonnet. Jacob rubbed his forehead. The meeting was ticking closer. People were calling. His phone buzzed in his pocket again and again. He laughed, a strong, proud laugh to hide his worry. "If you can fix this car," he said without thinking, "I will marry you. It's a bet." The woman stopped. "What?" Jessica's mouth fell open. "Mom." Jacob smirked. "Yes, you heard me. Fix it and see." For a moment, time went quiet on the hot highway. The woman stared at Jacob, weighing his eyes like a scale. Then she opened her old black bag and pulled out a small spanner, a roll of tape, and 2 tiny screwdrivers. The tools were clean and cared for. She had used them before. "My name is Sophia," she said, calm. "Step back, sir." Jacob blinked, surprised. He stepped back. Sophia leaned over the engine. She touched the battery head, clicked her tongue, and tightened it. She traced a loose wire with her fingers, followed it carefully like a thin road, then reconnected it with a steady hand. She checked a second wire, then a third. Her movements were quick and careful. She was not guessing. She was sure. Jessica held the bread and watched, proud and nervous at the same time. "Try it now," Sophia said, wiping her hands on her dress. Jacob slid into his seat, pressed the start button, and the Bentley woke up with a deep, rich hum. The engine purred like a happy cat. Jacob's eyes widened. For a second he forgot his name. Then his phone buzzed hard in his pocket. Another call from the meeting, another reminder that rich men do not wait. "Thank you," he said, but his voice was weak. His heart raced with relief and pride and a little shame. He looked at Sophia, then at the clock on the dashboard. He made a choice. He closed the bonnet, slid into the driver's seat and pressed the pedal. The Bentley leaped back into traffic. He didn't say another word. He didn't say thank you. He didn't say anything about the bet. He just zoomed off, like the promise had never happened. Sophia stood on the shoulder of the road with her old bag in one hand and her daughter in the other. The bread felt light now. The sun felt hotter. Jessica looked up at her. "Mom." He left. Sophia did not move for a moment. Then she reached into her pocket and brought out a small, old phone. The screen had a tiny crack, but the camera worked. She tapped it open and checked the video she had been recording from the moment Jacob made the promise. His face, his voice, his car, his plate number, all clear. Sophia's hands were steady now. "Come," she told Jessica. "Let's go to the station." At the police station, a tired fan turned slowly. Officers moved in and out with files under their arms. Sophia spoke plainly. She did not shout. She told the officers exactly what happened. She showed the video on her old phone. She gave the plate number. She gave the time. She said the words again. "If you fix my car, I will marry you. It's a bet." The officer who listened leaned forward. He watched the video twice. He called another officer. The second officer watched it too. They asked Sophia to write a statement. She wrote slowly and clearly, while Jessica sat beside her, swinging her legs and chewing the edge of fear. "Madam," one officer said at last, "we will invite him for questioning." Sophia nodded. "Thank you." She walked out of the station, holding Jessica's hand. The sun was softer now. But her heart was firm. She had done what she could. The rest would move by itself. On the top floor of a glass tower, a long table shone under white lights. The city sparkled through the windows. Important people murmured around cups of coffee and documents. Jacob sat at the head of the table, smooth again, smiling, making strong promises in a strong voice. The room felt safe for him. He liked rooms that felt safe. "Gentlemen," he said, "let's sign." The door opened. Two officers stepped in, polite but firm. The room fell silent. A pen stopped in mid-air. A chair scraped the floor. "Mr. Jacob Benjamin?" the first officer asked. Jacob stood, his smile fading. "Yes?" "You are needed at the police station for questioning, sir." Every eye turned to him. Every heartbeat in the room seemed to land on his chest. "What is this about?" Jacob asked, his voice dry. The officer raised a small printed note. "A complaint, a video, a promise you made on the highway this morning." Jacob's hands went cold, and then the pen he was holding dropped to the table with a sharp, tiny sound. Jacob followed the officers down the hallway like a man walking inside a dream he did not like. His chest pulled tight, his jaw clenched. People in the meeting room whispered behind him, confused, surprised, and secretly entertained. A billionaire CEO being taken for questioning. About what? A joke? A woman? A roadside bet? It sounded ridiculous. Except it was happening. Inside the elevator, the younger officer tapped a tablet and read again. Complainant's name, Sophia Daniels. Evidence submitted. 1 video recording, 1 plate number, 1 statement. Jacob inhaled sharply. Sophia. That woman with the old bag and tired eyes. He had forgotten her already. He never thought someone like her could pull him into anything serious. He muttered under his breath, "This is nonsense." But the officers heard him. "Sir," the older officer said, "it might be nonsense to you, but the law takes public promises seriously when they involve terms, conditions, and witnesses." Jacob stared at him, shocked. "What? You can't be serious." "We'll see," the officer replied. When they reached the station, reporters were already waiting outside. A camera light flashed in Jacob's face. "Sir, is it true you promised to marry a woman from the street? Sir, did she really fix your car? Sir, did you run away without saying thank you?" Jacob felt anger rising. He hated embarrassment. He hated anything that damaged his perfect image. Inside the station, the air smelled of ink and old files. A ceiling fan groaned above him like it was tired of everyone's problems. Then he saw her. Sophia. She sat on a metal chair, hands folded in her lap, her brown dress looking even older in the fluorescent light. Jessica sat beside her, holding a nylon bag with their bread, looking both scared and brave at the same time. Sophia did not stand. She did not fidget. She did not lower her eyes. She looked at Jacob the same way she looked at his engine hours before, firm and honest. The officer in charge cleared his throat. "Mr. Benjamin, do you know this woman?" Jacob hesitated for half a second too long. Yes, he said, she passed by when my car broke down, but I don't know her personally. Tell us how you met, the officer said. Jacob leaned back and forced a polite smile. I was on the highway. My Bentley stopped. She was passing. She offered help. I made a light joke, nothing more. I did not force her. I did not sign anything. I have no obligation to her. Sophia's eyebrow raised slightly. The officer nodded. Madam Sophia, show the video again. Sophia stood and handed her small old phone over. The video played, crystal clear. Jacob's face, his voice, his exact words. If you fix this car, I will marry you. It's a bet. The officers paused the video at the moment he smirked. Jessica whispered to her mum, he said it. He really said it. Jacob straightened. It was sarcasm, a joke. Anyone can see that. The officer looked at him. Sir, you drove off without thanking her. You left her on the highway. And you clearly said it was a bet. She fixed the car, Jessica burst out. I saw her. She fixed it perfectly and he ran away. Jacob felt heat rise in his neck. He hated being shouted at by a child. I am not marrying anyone because of a silly joke, he snapped. Sophia lifted her head. Then you should not have spoken like a man who meant it. The room went silent. The officer scribbled a note. He leaned back. Mr. Benjamin, because this involves public statements, a promise, a challenge, and evidence, we will transfer this matter to court. The judge will decide if your words carry legal weight. Jacob stepped forward. This is absurd. Sir, the officer said firmly, you cannot shout here. Jacob swallowed his anger. He realized something far worse. This was no longer just a misunderstanding. It was becoming a threat. To his brand, to his image, to his spotless reputation as a powerful billionaire CEO. A poor woman had dragged him into the one place he never wanted to be, public disgrace. He signed the papers angrily and left the station with clenched fists. Cameras flashed again. Sir, will you marry her? Sir, is this true? Sir, how do you feel about the case? Jacob said nothing. He entered his car and slammed the door. His driver stared straight ahead, pretending not to see his boss's shaking hands. That night, Sophia sat with her daughter in their small apartment. The roof leaked when it rained. The bulb flickered. The floor was dusty concrete. But tonight, the room felt different. Jessica hugged her mother tight. Mom, what if the judge doesn't believe us? Sophia stroked her daughter's hair gently. The truth does not hide, my child. I have worked hard all my life. I have fought storms alone. This one, I will not lose. Jessica's eyes glistened. I believe you. Sophia closed her eyes. In her chest, her heart beat both fear and courage at the same time. She didn't hate Jacob. She didn't want revenge. She only wanted justice, something the world rarely gave to poor people like her. Tomorrow would tell. Meanwhile, in his mansion, Jacob paced back and forth. His house was big, bright, and perfect, but his mind was dark and messy. How can a roadside woman challenge me? He muttered. How dare she? But deep inside, he knew the truth. He had underestimated her. He had spoken carelessly. He had laughed in her face. He had run away. Now the world was watching. Now he had to face a judge. And worst of all, he had a strange, uncomfortable feeling he could not explain. A feeling that tomorrow might not go the way he expected. Then his phone buzzed. A message from his lawyer. Court hearing scheduled for tomorrow morning. Be prepared. Jacob exhaled sharply. Tomorrow, everything would change. The courtroom was overflowing long before the hearing began. People squeezed into the back row. Reporters balanced cameras on their shoulders. Lawyers whispered to their clients. Even curious strangers stood outside the doorway, waiting to see how a billionaire could get dragged to court by a poor single mother. It felt like the whole world had come to watch. When Jacob Benjamin entered, the room changed. He wore a dark navy suit that looked expensive enough to buy someone's house. Security guards followed behind him. His face was calm, but his jaw tightened whenever someone whispered his name. He hated this. He hated the attention. He hated being the one on the defensive. Please sit, his lawyer whispered, pulling him into a seat. Across the courtroom sat Sophia. She had no lawyer. She had no fancy clothes, just her old brown dress and her old black bag resting on her lap. but she sat with dignity, calm, steady, ready. Jessica sat beside her, holding her mother's hand and squeezing it tightly. Whenever anyone stared, Jessica lifted her chin like a young lioness protecting her pride. The judge entered. Justice Margaret, an elderly woman with silver hair, round glasses, and a voice that could silence a battlefield. Everyone rose. "Be seated," she said, adjusting her robe. The moment felt heavy, like the air was waiting for something dramatic to happen. Case number 204, the court clerk read. Sophia Daniels versus Jacob Benjamin. A soft wave of murmurs moved across the courtroom. The judge clasped her hands. "Let us begin." Sophia was called first. She stood, stepped forward, and bowed slightly. Her heart beat fast, but her eyes stayed steady. "Madam Sophia," the judge said, "tell this court, in your own words, what happened." Sophia breathed in. "On the morning of Monday, my daughter and I were walking to buy bread. We saw Mr. Benjamin by the roadside. His car had broken down." She paused, letting her words settle. "He asked me to fix it. I asked if he was joking. He said, 'Fix my car, I will marry you. It's a bet.'" Those were his words. Jacob stared at her, annoyed. She talks too confidently, he thought. Sophia continued, "I fixed the car. He drove away without thanking me, and without saying anything about the promise. I felt insulted, and I knew poor people like me can't fight big people like him without proof." She held up her old phone. "So I recorded everything." "Present the evidence," the judge instructed. The court clerk plugged the phone into a monitor. The video played. Jacob's voice echoed in the room. "If you fix my car, I will marry you. It's a bet." People gasped again, even louder this time. The video clearly showed Jacob smirking, arms folded confidently, looking exactly like a man who believed the world rolled at his feet. Then the video showed Sophia working fast with a spanner, reconnecting wires, tightening the battery head. And the Bentley roaring back to life, then Jacob driving off. Not a word of thanks, not a single glance back. When the video ended, the courtroom felt different. Like everyone's idea of who Jacob Benjamin was had shifted. Judge Margaret nodded slowly. "Thank you, Madam Sophia. You may return to your seat." Sophia walked back and Jessica hugged her tightly, whispering, "You did well, Mom. You did well." "Mr. Benjamin," the judge said sharply, "stand." Jacob stood, adjusting his expensive suit with trembling fingers he tried to hide. "State your side." Jacob cleared his throat. "Your Honor, it was a harmless joke. Anyone in that situation would know I wasn't serious. I was frustrated. My car stopped. She happened to be there. I made a playful comment to lighten the moment. I had no intention of creating any legal agreement." "Did she fix your car?" the judge asked. Jacob hesitated. "Yes." "And did you require her help for your urgent meeting?" Yes." "And did you tell her you would marry her if she fixed it?" "That was not meant literally," he said quickly. "It was a figure of speech." The judge raised a brow. "Do you often promise marriage as a figure of speech?" A few people laughed under their breath. Jacob felt heat rise in his neck. "No, Your Honor." But you said it," the judge pressed. "You issued a challenge, a bet, and she completed it." "It was still a joke," Jacob insisted, fists forming at his sides. The judge leaned forward. "Mr. Benjamin, jokes have limits, words have weight, especially when spoken publicly with conditions attached." The courtroom fell quiet. The judge looked at both sides again, Sophia calm and hopeful, Jacob tense and embarrassed. Then she reached for her gavel. Everyone's heart jumped. After reviewing the evidence, she began slowly, "This court finds Mr. Jacob Benjamin guilty of manipulation and failure to honor a public promise." Jacob's stomach dropped. "Since the promise involved marriage," she continued, "Mr. Benjamin has two options. Marry Madam Sophia, as he stated, or pay her 200 million naira for breaking his word." Gasps filled the room. Someone shouted, "Kai!" Reporters scribbled wildly. Jessica cried tears of joy and hugged her mother tightly. Jacob's face went blank, like someone pulled the ground from under him. "Choose now," the judge said. "This court awaits your answer." Every head turned toward him, every camera pointed at him, every heartbeat in the courtroom paused. Jacob swallowed hard. His world, his money, his name, his reputation hung in the balance. And the next words from his mouth could change everything. For a long, heavy moment, Jacob Benjamin said nothing. He stood in the courtroom like a man standing on a cliff edge, wind pushing against his back, waiting for either a miracle or a fall. The entire room held its breath. The reporters, the lawyers, the strangers. Jessica, clutching her mother's arm, Sophia, sitting with trembling fingers but steady eyes. Judge Margaret watched him with calm patience, her gavel resting gently against the wooden block. "Mr. Benjamin," she said, "this court will not wait forever. Choose." Jacob felt sweat prick the back of his neck. He had built a billion-naira empire with confidence and speed. But now he felt like a child who didn't know which door led to trouble. His lawyer leaned close and whispered urgently, "Sir, you cannot marry her. It will hit your company. Your board will panic. Investors will react. Choose the fine. Pay it." 200 million? Jacob whispered back, stunned. "For a joke." "It is not about the amount," the lawyer replied. "It is about protecting your name." Jacob looked down. His name, his pride, his image. He swallowed hard and finally looked at the judge. "Your Honor," he said slowly, I cannot marry someone I don't know. I choose the fine." A wave of gasps swept through the room like wind rushing through trees. Jessica covered her mouth, eyes filling with tears. Not sadness, but victory. Sophia's shoulders fell, not in defeat, but in relief. She had not wanted to marry a stranger. She only wanted respect. "Justice." Judge Margaret nodded. "Very well, you will pay 200 million naira to Madam Sophia Daniels. Full amount. No delay. Or your assets will be frozen." Jacob's heart cracked. 200 million. Gone. Just like that. "One more thing," the judge added. "Let this be a lesson. Do not make promises your ego cannot carry." She struck the gavel. Case closed. The courtroom erupted, reporters rushing forward, people cheering, others shaking their heads in shock. Sophia stood slowly. Jessica jumped into her arms, crying loudly, "Mom, we won! You did it! You did it!" Sophia held her daughter tightly, tears streaming down her face. She had been stepped on so many times in her life. Doors shut against her, voices silenced her, poverty mocked her. But today she stood tall. Today she defeated a billionaire. Jacob walked out of the courtroom like a man walking through water. Slow, heavy, lost. Outside, cameras flashed again. "Sir, did you underestimate her? Sir, how do you feel losing 200 million? Sir, do you regret your words?" Jacob pushed past them, face hard and jaw tight. Inside his car, he slumped back and closed his eyes. He remembered her calm voice, her steady hands on his engine, her old bag holding tools she cared for like treasure, her bravery, her daughter's fierce loyalty. He exhaled shakily. Maybe he had not lost to a random roadside woman. Maybe he had lost to someone stronger than he ever imagined. 2 weeks later, the transfer was completed. Sophia received the full amount. Her bank account, which had always held less than 10,000 naira, now lit up like a small universe. 200 million naira. Jessica screamed so loudly that neighbors rushed over, thinking danger had come. Sophia held her chest, whispering, "God, is this real?" It was more money than she had seen in her entire life, more than her mind could understand. But she did not run to buy gold or fancy clothes. She sat down, she breathed. Then she made a plan. She had worked in farms before. She knew sesame. She knew which seeds were good, which buyers paid well, which countries imported them. She made calls. She visited traders in Kano and Maiduguri. She spoke to exporters in Lagos port. Every night she studied with Jessica's help, learning shipping, packaging, pricing, and logistics. Within 3 months, she registered Sophia Gold Exports. Within 6 months, she made her first shipment to Europe. Within 1 year, she became the biggest sesame exporter in Nigeria. Her story spread. Newspapers wrote about her. TV stations interviewed her. People called her the woman who beat a billionaire and rose again. But she always smiled and said, "I did not rise to shame him. I rose to give my daughter a future." That future came faster than she imagined. Jessica, now 16, got admission to aviation school. The day they got the letter, Sophia sat on the floor and cried, holding her daughter tightly. "Mum," Jessica whispered, "you believed in me when no one else did." 3 years later, Jessica walked across the graduation stage in a crisp white pilot uniform. The crowd cheered. Sophia cried again, loud and happy tears. Now a successful exporter, she could afford anything. But the greatest wealth for her was watching her daughter stand tall in front of the world. When Jessica took her first official flight as a pilot from Abuja to Port Harcourt, she asked for one special passenger, her mother. Sophia entered the aircraft, dressed in a simple but elegant outfit, still carrying her old black bag, even though she no longer needed it. It was part of her story. Jessica entered the cockpit, placed her hand on the controls, and spoke softly through the speaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, this flight is dedicated to my mother, the woman who taught me how to fight for a better life." Passengers clapped. Sophia covered her face with shaking hands and cried again. Meanwhile, Jacob watched the news from his office. Every headline carried her name. Every interview praised her strength. Every picture showed her smiling confidently beside bags of sesame ready for export. He leaned back in his chair. That woman, he had misjudged her deeply. And strangely, he found himself thinking about her again, more often than he expected. He did not know why, until the day fate pushed their paths together again. Jacob was walking out of a finance summit in Abuja when he heard someone call, "Mr. Benjamin." He turned. Sophia stood there, calm, successful, and shining in her own quiet way. Jacob froze, and that moment changed everything again. In suits moved around with glasses of juice, cameras flashed, reporters whispered, business owners exchanged cards, and there she stood, Sophia. Not the Sophia with a faded dress and old black bag on a highway. This Sophia was different. She wore a clean, simple emerald gown that flowed gently when she moved. Her hair was neatly styled. Her eyes were calm, clear, and confident, like someone who had survived storms and learned to walk with her head high. But she still held her old black bag in her hand. That bag was her history. When Jacob turned and their eyes met, something inside him stopped. Something quiet, something real. "Madam Sophia," he said slowly. "Mr. Benjamin," she replied, bowing her head politely. He didn't know what hit him, but his chest tightened with a strange mixture of guilt, respect, and something he couldn't name. How have you been?" Jacob asked, voice softer than he intended. Sophia smiled warmly. "Busy, but grateful. God has been kind." He nodded. "I've seen your interviews, the exports, the success. You've grown a massive business." She laughed lightly. "One must work hard when blessings come. Money is easier to lose than to gain." Her words cut gently into Jacob's heart. He wished he could go back to the day he had spoken foolishly on the highway. The day he treated her like she was invisible. The silence between them stretched, but not awkwardly, just long enough to show how different their worlds had become. Jacob cleared his throat. "I would like to talk properly, if you don't mind." Sophia paused, unsure. Jessica soon walked up beside her in her crisp pilot uniform, fresh from another flight. She hugged her mom lightly, then greeted Jacob with a nod. "Good afternoon, sir." Jacob blinked. "Pilot Jessica, congratulations on your success." She smiled shyly. "Thank you, sir." Sophia looked at her daughter, then back at Jacob. "All right," she said. "We can talk." They sat outside under a shade of palm trees, away from the noise of the conference. Waiters moved around quietly with trays of drinks. Jacob started with the truth. "I was wrong," he said plainly. "I'm sorry for everything." Sophia looked at him carefully, as if testing the weight of his apology. "You were proud," she said gently. "But I forgave you long ago. That day taught me never to fear powerful people again." Jacob inhaled sharply. "I deserved that lesson." There was a softness in his voice she had never heard before. He continued, "I want to invest in your company, not because of guilt, but because your work is brilliant. You've built something extraordinary. Sophia studied him for a long moment, then nodded. If you want to invest, it will be business only. No pity investment. Jacob smiled. I wouldn't dare. They signed papers 2 weeks later. His share was small because he insisted she remained in full control, and somehow after the business meetings, more meetings followed. Coffee meetings, dinner meetings, a few conversations beyond business, laughter, stories. Moments that surprised both of them. Sophia realized Jacob was not the man she had met on the road. He listened now. He apologized when wrong. He treated her like she mattered. And Jacob realized something deeper. Sophia brought peace to places in him that success never touched. They became close, close enough for people to start whispering. Are they dating? Is that the same woman he joked about on the road? Maybe fate brought them back together. At first, Sophia ignored the whispers, until the night Jacob's voice trembled for the first time. It was a quiet evening in Abuja. The sun was sinking low, painting the sky orange and gold. Sophia was checking shipment papers at her dining table when Jacob arrived unexpectedly. He looked nervous, not like the billionaire CEO everyone knew, but like a man standing at the door of something delicate. Sophia, he said softly. She looked up, surprised by the seriousness in his eyes. He removed a small velvet box from his pocket. Sophia froze. Her heart stumbled. No, Jacob. What are you? He stepped closer, voice steady and honest. Not because of the court case. He took her hand. Not because of the past. He opened the box. A simple, elegant ring sparkled inside. But because your strength changed something in me. You taught me what humility looks like, what kindness feels like, and what love should be. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. Jacob dropped to one knee. Marry me, this time not as a joke, not as a bet, but as a man who finally understands your value. For a long second, Sophia couldn't breathe. Her heart spoke before her lips did. Yes, she whispered, voice breaking. Yes, Jacob, I will. When Jessica heard the news, she screamed so loud the landlord thought something terrible had happened. Instead, something beautiful had happened. The wedding was quiet, simple, small, just close friends, a few family members, and soft music. Sophia walked down the aisle holding Jessica's hand, not flowers. Jacob stood waiting with tears in his eyes. He had once tried to run away from her. Now he waited eagerly for her to become his forever. 1 year later, Jessica, now flying international routes, stepped off a plane and ran into the arms of a tall young man with kind eyes, Dr. Nicholas. They fell in love like sunrise, slow at first, then bright all at once. 2 months later, Jessica brought him home. Sophia hugged him warmly. Jacob shook his hand proudly. They gave their blessing. On the wedding day, Jessica stood in a white gown that shimmered like hope. Soft music played. Guests wiped tears. Nicholas waited at the altar, and as Jessica took her first step down the aisle, she had 2 people walking beside her. Sophia, the mother who fought the world for her, and Jacob, the man who once made a careless bet, but ended up finding his greatest treasure. Hand in hand, they walked her forward toward a future shaped by love, new beginnings, and second chances. And as Jessica smiled through tears, she whispered, Mom, Dad, thank you. What is your view about this story? Where are you watching from? If you enjoyed this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.